No, Salty, I'm not passed out in a gutter someplace. I am
Wow.
hosting the show, though. Good to have you here on a Monday with Vince. I'm Sean. We were both at Notre Dame women's win earlier today over Ole Miss. We will get into that in full detail
Yes.
in just a little bit. We're going to start with the latest football news. But did you take a half day? Is that how you kind of ended up like at the game? I saw your father-in-law, and was it Chloe who would have been there with him?
Yep, she's the
Right.
big fan in the house outside of me,
Right.
of
I
course.
saw
So,
them on Saturday, but I
yeah.
figured, well, the kids are in school today when you were telling me you were going to be at
Well,
the game. So,
I am not the favorite person in the house right now to her because
you got to go, and
she wanted to go, and the other girls wanted to go too, but I think they wanted to go because they were going to get out of school.
right.
And so, it's the whole, which child do I choose kind of a thing. And I was like, you know what?
I'll just choose myself.
That's right.
That's right.
Dad's going to go. That's how that went down. So she wasn't very happy with me, but she's super excited that Notre Dame won. She was watching it on TV when she got home, but she was super excited about it. So,
all right.
And I told her, I promised her, I said, if Notre Dame goes to the Final Four, I said, I'll take you. So
there you go. It's in Cleveland. We might even be able to well, I was going to say, Jesse's apartment is in high demand already, because my sister is a basketball coach, and she, it's like the Final Four is like the coaches convention. All the, coaches come in, and
good point.
So she was hitting Jesse up, if she could stay there. And he's like, his girlfriend has friends coming in for the weekend. So they're like already like, they could probably get primo dollars if they really wanted to. Renting the thing out.
So, no doubt about it. But yeah, look, if they're going to the Final Four, that means they obviously beat South Carolina, or South Carolina lost to the winner of Indiana and whoever they're playing.
Oklahoma.
Yeah. And if they go to the Final Four, Notre Dame goes to the Final Four, they got a great shot at winning the whole dang thing. So I was like, you know what?
Absolutely.
I said, we'll go. We'll go. We'll figure it out.
Not that far away. Yeah,
you might as well. Break. That's like the tail end of spring break. So no school will be missed. It's a win-win.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, let's start with some football. We will talk, like I said, in full detail about Notre Dame women's basketball's win a little bit later in the show. But pretty big Riley Leonard news that we got this weekend, as it turns out.
Yes, very big and very unexpected for me. I had no idea, that was the case. And, we're obviously going to hear it, but I was shocked, to be honest with you.
I was as well. And here is Marcus Freeman, who was at both Notre Dame women's basketball wins, by the way, along with his wife and a handful of other people. But here's Marcus Freeman with the news from this weekend.
Riley Leonard will be out the next few weeks, due to an additional surgery he had on his ankle on Friday, so yesterday, to address a stress fracture that was beginning to develop. And, basically the surgery was to exchange the current plate he had in his ankle with a new one. The doctors thought it went extremely well. The overall prognosis of health of his ankle is excellent. So we'll see when he can get back. We're not putting a timetable, but we know it's going to be a few weeks, but we're not saying he's out for the spring. There could be a chance he comes back and participates in some capacity during spring ball.
So there's Marcus Freeman, the Fighting Irish head coach, breaking the news. Didn't even have to be asked about it. He just, kind of went right into the injury update. And, this is obviously, this goes back a ways now, like 6 months ago, I believe, is, the initial injury that he suffered, the injury in that Duke loss to Notre Dame. And he said he had the tightrope surgery in January. And now they're dealing with this plate issue with the stress fracture in the foot. So, I mean, it's a concern when anyone's injured. I think it's a bigger concern when it's your quarterback.
Sure.
But just in terms of the fact that this is a lingering issue now. It started off as one thing, and now it's another after he already had surgery in January. How big a concern is this, just in terms of the big picture, do you think, for Riley Leonard?
Before Saturday's press conference, it wasn't a concern of mine in any way, shape, or form. It didn't exist on my radar. Now it's definitely on my radar. You don't want to treat your quarterback like a China doll, obviously. But at this point, if I'm the Notre Dame staff, he's not touching the field the rest of spring. Because what's the point? There's 0 point in my eye, right, Leonard to touch the field during spring. He can, and everybody's going to talk about, timing with the receivers and, all this other stuff.
You can do that. You can do that in the summer when there's no contact to worry about, nothing, just like throwing the ball.
He's been a starting quarterback for quite a while. So I'm not worried about, him getting mental reps and figuring out. He's a veteran. He understands how to, get into an offense. Plus he's got Mike Denbrock there to kind of not hold his hand, but teach him, the offense and all. Like, I'm not worried at all about the mental side of it. He needs to be healthy. That's your number one priority. If he gets on the field at all during spring, that is a problem for me. Like, you need to put him in bubble wrap and get him to fall camp 100% healthy, because he's not competing for the job. It's his job. Okay. There is no quarterback competition. The competition is for 2, 3, and 4. So now you have a great opportunity for those 3 guys to get after it and really compete for the job, because now there's 25% more reps to go around. Yeah. So I love that part, honestly.
And, I mean, it's the same leg, that we're talking about, that, where he had the ankle. And I was talking to someone, not a surgeon, but someone in the medical field, like they might have, when they did this tightrope, they might have basically kind of tightened things up a little bit too much. And, it's led to another thing. And the fact that you've got to go back in and replace a plate in the foot, that is just not a good thing, and like the fact that it's a bigger picture issue now. And like it's a concern going forward, because you mentioned the bubble wrap, and it's like there's only so much bubble wrap that you've got once the season starts. And like, when you're talking the spring, I completely agree. There's no reason for him to come back in the spring, because even if he's just out there, kind of, running plays against air or whatever, like, why put any extra strain on this thing that obviously is in need of healing? But, again, like, he only played a handful of games after that Notre Dame game. And
he was not at 100%. And it was very obvious.
But I mean, again, it's like, it's been 6 months since the initial injury. And now where we are right now, we're 4 months from the start of the next season.
Yeah.
This is a guy who needs to get healthy in a hurry. And there's, you're not going to do that doing anything, I don't think, in the spring.
I know, 100% agree with you. And I would say the bigger issue for me is, okay, his health is the number one priority between, March 23rd, when they announced this thing, until, August 31st or whenever the first game is. And at that point, then you got to take the rein, like you got to take the training wheels off. You can't coach a Notre Dame team who has national championship aspirations like you have a fragile quarterback. You still, you know what I mean? Like, if that's the case, he shouldn't play.
Yeah, like, you can't coach and call plays around that.
Right.
Especially when you've got a quarterback who runs the way he does.
Exactly. You have to treat him like he's 100% healthy, because if he's not your best option at quarterback.
Right.
So the goal is to get him to opening day, or, I got baseball on my mind, but get him to the first game of the season. And then it's, hey, man, we're going to call plays as if you're 100% healthy. We got to roll with this. You're the quarterback. Let's go. But between now and then, you better be careful. You better be careful. I don't need to hear him, twisting his ankle walking down the stairs, or, those kinds of, like, that stuff.
Right.
I mean, take the elevator, buddy. Get in a wheelchair. I don't care what it takes. You need to be healthy. by Texas A&M.
But I mean, you know what this is going to mean now, because they're going to get out there with no Riley Leonard in the spring game.
Yeah.
And one of these guys is going to have a big spring game. And it's like, there's going to be a chorus of why did we go get Riley Leonard in the first place? Whether it's Angeli or Menchie or even Carr for that.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And that,
because remember, the Angeli love started at the end of the blue gold game.
Yes, it did.
When he led that drive
against all the backups and the walk-ons. Yeah,
right.
I remember.
Against our cousins and your brothers out there in the touch football game and everything else.
Right.
So
it's everybody always goes overboard at the blue gold game, both positively and negatively, right?
Mm-hmm.
It happens every single year. And now with Riley Leonard out, that's exactly what's about to happen. And one of those quarterbacks is going to show up and show out in that game. And they're going to, we're going to hear it from April 20th all the way until fall camp starts. And hey, as long as you're playing those podcast downloads, I don't care.
That's a good call, Vince. It's a very good call. Just hit play on the podcast. That's all you have to do.
That's right.
Anthony said setback for Riley, opportunity for the younger players to make a statement. And I mean, that's I think how the rest of the spring needs to be approached. It would be icing on the cake, obviously, if Riley, because of the fact that he is an incoming transfer and it is a new offense and a new coordinator. And you were talking about timing with the receivers. And so, again, I think timing with the receivers, like if you shut him down now and you wait until, the middle of June when workouts start again and, into the summer when, the quarterback and the receivers, I think that all that can take care of itself because that's what the quarterbacks and the receivers are typically doing in the summertime anyway, when they're all here on campus, staying together, doing that kind of stuff. All that stuff will be fine. But it just feels like as because again, I know how the quarterback situation has been presented. We have always felt like the real race is between Angeli and Menchie for number 2.
Sure.
And I feel like that can become a true race now.
Yep.
Actually, also, kind of find out where Carr is in that process as well in his first spring on campus.
Yeah, and I don't know if you have the audio, but listening to the press conference, he talked about what the reps were going to be like for those 3 guys, and he's like, it's going to be easy. It's going to be Angeli with the 1s, it's going to be Menchie with the 2s, and it's going to be Carr with the 3s, and you kind of just go from there. There's going to be plenty of practices where we're not there, and there's going to be some movement, and you're going to see some guys moving around and getting some opportunity to throw to the 1s and, all of those kinds of things. And it's going to be a great opportunity for those 3 quarterbacks because I do think it's going to be a battle to see who the number 2 guy is going to be. And with the extra reps now for those guys,
right,
I think we're really going to be able to see who the actual number 2 guy is. And you can throw CJ Carr into the mix too if you want to. I mean, it's going to be harder for an early enrollee freshman to get, up to speed that quickly. But listen, I'm all for this battle for number 2. That's what I was looking at regardless, going into the spring. I think that was going to be fun to watch. Now it's going to be front and center because there is no Riley Leonard to kind of get in the way of that battle. And so it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I do want to pull up a question because it kind of goes along with what we're talking about here. And Sloppy Joe says, if Riley struggles like Sam, will he be given the same leeway or will Marcus Freeman make a move? I think that all depends on how these 3 guys operate over the next, 3 or 4 months.
What confidence does, whether it's Angeli or Menchie, what confidence does he, instill in Marcus Freeman and Mike Denbrock and Gino Gaduli that they can feel like, is this, is it closer to 1A and 1B, or is it a definite 1 versus 2 going into the season?
What is that gap between Riley Leonard and the next guy, whoever that next guy is? Is it very small? Is it bigger? Because look, let's be honest. You can say whatever you want about Steve Angeli and how he played in the bowl game. The gap between Hartman and Angeli throughout the whole year was large. It was a large gap. And so if you're going to make that move and you're going to take out Sam Hartman to put in Steve Angeli, it changes everything that you want to do offensively. And so it's not just about the quarterback position. It's also about every other position that's out on the field on offense, right? So it really all depends. Now, this opportunity without Riley here in the spring could close that gap a little bit. And maybe if there is a struggle or if there's an injury, they feel better about going to whoever the number 2 guy is. You know what I mean? So I think that all remains to be seen, Sloppy, but that's a really good question.
Well, and we've talked about the way the schedule breaks out as well, and that can be a factor in this thing also, because you go to Texas A&M, but then you've got Northern Illinois, Purdue, Miami of Ohio, 3 weeks in a row before you take on Louisville. And now,
right.
Like obviously before last season, we'd be talking about Louisville in a different breath, but that all changed. But still, that's a 3-game stretch.
Sure.
Where, if depending on what happens in that first game, that I think that you can feel confident in Steve Angeli, like in his ability to go out there and help you win football games against those 3 opponents specifically.
Absolutely. Yeah. So,
and that
go ahead.
Again, like the guy showed that he could go out and run the offense, but there's still there's still a talent difference between Riley Leonard and Steve Angeli, and that's why they brought in Riley
exactly. Leonard. And again, it all comes down to that, right? I mean, if we're going to talk about, is it Angeli time and all this other stuff? Look, if there's a healthy Riley Leonard, it's Riley Leonard time, and that's the end of the discussion. If they thought that they could pin the hopes and dreams of Notre Dame football on the back of Steve Angeli, they don't go get a transfer quarterback like Riley Leonard. Period. They just don't. And so they would bring in an Ivy League guy for depth or, whatever the other stuff we were talking about, a year ago. They didn't do that. They went out and got the best quarterback that was on the market, and they brought him to Notre Dame. There we are. So that's what the coaching staff thinks of Steve Angeli. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
But given, again, like the fact that Riley Leonard is going through this again in March after the injury that was 6 months ago, are you kind of like you said last week, didn't have a reason for concern with Riley Leonard? Guys have been injured before. They've come back from injury and things have been fine. But now the fact that you've had, you've got something that's more than just a minor complication. I think the fact that you're going in and you're replacing a foot, or not 100%. Replacing a foot, placing a plate in the foot with a stress fracture. I'm much more concerned right now than I was last week that Riley Leonard is going to be able to get through an entire 12-game schedule, let alone potentially, 16, 17-game schedule if they end up in the playoffs at the end of the year, which we all think that they're going to do.
No, believe me, I am with you 1,000%. I think that it was a zero concern before Saturday, and now it's a legitimate concern. And so we're going to have to see how this thing heals. We're going to have to see him running around and doing all the things that you would hope that a starting quarterback can do come August. But right now, it's an absolute concern. This is the same ankle. And there's a question in here. Well, you can pull it up from Decaf, right? He says, is this guy injury prone?
Right.
I mean, is that a legitimate? I wouldn't use the term injury prone.
I wouldn't say injury prone, because I just think that, this is kind of a, I mean, what happens when you have an injury, overcompensation or compensation of any kind can just lead to another injury. Like guys with a left leg injury, as they're coming back, they're going to overcompensate, rely on their right leg. And a lot of times they end up with some kind of, issue, with that leg as well.
Right.
So I wouldn't say he's necessarily injury prone. It's just unfortunately sort of an unintended consequence that's led to another injury in a different part of the same leg. We're counting the foot as the leg, basically.
Yeah, and it's the same injury kind of over and over. And so it's like they got to get this one healed. He's not injury prone. I would not say that, because it's not like he hurts other parts of his body on a regular basis. It's just this same injury that hasn't healed properly yet. So Now you got to use time. Time is going to be your best friend at this point. And spring practice, as much as we love spring practice, as much as we love talking about it, at the end of the day, spring practice doesn't matter. Nobody wins a national championship in March. That's not how it works. So, but is it?
Look, and I would include the workouts as well. Back up. It's interesting because, with all this GPS tracking and stuff like that they've got with, like, I was talking to someone on the strength staff, and they can look at the data that they're getting on a day-to-day basis,
right,
and go, wow, he's favoring his right side 70% compared to the left side 30%. So they can see where imbalances start to begin. And then at that point, they're like, okay, based on this, we need to start, making sure we're doing more of this, so that's something that they're really going to have to keep an eye on going forward when he comes back. And I wouldn't even be, as much as obviously you need your quarterback to be in proper condition and all that stuff, I definitely would not just be rushing in with both feet as soon as Riley Leonard comes in and jumping in, full speed with the strength and conditioning and all that kind of stuff in June and July.
No, completely agree. And, a stress fracture, it sounds terrible. It's a fracture, right? It sounds really, really bad. But my kid runs track. We hear about stress fractures all the time in kids. It's just time. You just need time. You have, quote unquote, weeks to kind of let that heal up. But it's literally just staying off of it and giving it time, and it'll be fine. It's just the question is, how much time does he need? In my opinion, spring is over for you, my man. You can hang out in the quarterback room. You get all the mental reps that you need. You can coach up the younger guys on the roster. You're done, man. There's no point. There's no upside to bringing him back in any kind of competitive situation at all. So that's what I would be. If I ever saw him in a jersey out on the field, I would Marcus, what are you doing?
Right.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it.
Get on that bike.
Yeah.
Joe said he messed up his ankle many years ago, and it's never been the same. Granted, he's not a young athlete. But yeah, don't tell my wife this, because she, broke her ankle and has screws and a plate and ligaments, and she's I'm never gonna be the same. It's not gonna be the same. I'm like, come on, it's been a month. It's been a month.
Yeah.
It's so I don't know. But young bones, you do hope, heal at a different rate, obviously.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And he's not just young, but he's an athlete, obviously. And he's got the best care, right? He's going to have the best orthopedic surgeons. He's going to have the best of the best, right? And the best rehab and all of that. So, he's going to end up being fine, I would imagine, but it's still something that's now on the radar officially.
Something that's got to be watched a lot closer. A lot closer.
100%.
Joe also said, how many surgeries do they go through before going to basically whether or not they have to go to the transfer portal again?
They're not going to the transfer portal for a quarterback. They're good. So. Yeah, it doesn't, unless he has to get a leg amputated. They're not going to the transfer portal again. This is a minor procedure to replace a plate in his ankle. This is not, as a coach, it's not something to be concerned about. We are allowed to be concerned about it because we don't have all the information, right? But they don't seem.
They obviously have a lot more information than us and a better feel for,
correct,
what they think is going to happen. Now, at the same time, I don't think that they thought in January that the guy was going to develop a stress fracture and then going through this. Right.
Absolutely. Now. Absolutely. But if you're ranking all the injuries, a stress fracture is pretty low on the totem pole of injuries. You know what I mean? So just not overly concerned about it.
I actually did have a stress fracture when I was younger. Now that I think of it, and it's it takes a little bit of time. And again, when you're still in your 20s, and it's literally just a matter of some ice and rest is all it is.
Yes,
that's what it comes down to, is just staying off it and And now I didn't have to have a plate in mind. It wasn't to that degree. And I also, was not, running around being tackled and, all those different, but again, that's why I think it's just as important in the short term, just to stay off it as much as possible and do nothing for as long as possible until
Right.
you absolutely have to. And then it's time to get going again.
Absolutely. But yeah, still a concern. I mean, not the news I was expecting to open the press conference on Saturday. That's for darn sure.
No doubt. And, and then the other side of this is if I think that there was at least some concern that you were going to get to the end of spring and Riley Leonard was going to be the number one, and you were going to have a situation like you had last year where somebody enters the portal.
Sure.
I like indirectly, do you think that this kind of, diminishes somebody taking off? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, no, I do.
You're going to get there and like, whoever is number two, whether it's Angeli or Minchie, like, hey, you're literally a snap away.
Sure.
I mean, you're always a snap away, but I don't know. What do you think about that?
No, that's definitely something to think about for sure. I still feel like it's interesting because, somebody asked him that question about the timetable to name a starter. And I thought that was interesting. He sounds like he'd still be willing to almost name a starter by the end of spring. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't sound like he was like, yeah, we're going to have to wait until fall camp to make that decision. You know what I mean? He was open to the fact that they may make that decision sooner than later. And I think if that's the case, then you could still see a transfer. If it's prolonged, then, maybe you see all four guys stick around. I think I still in my head have the odds in the same order that I've had them all along. They just might have gone, like, the odds have gone up a little bit, as in meaning I don't think, I think that there's a chance that they all stick around. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I still think Steve Angeli is the most likely to transfer, followed by Minchie, followed by Carr. Like, that's the order I would put it in if I was setting like lines. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, this is reality now. Like, hey, he could mess up his ankle in the first play of the Texas A&M game. So whoever's number two better be ready to roll.
Well, I mean, let's say this is worst case scenario. Let's say that they get through, get into fall training camp and either he's not able to go or, something happens during camp and he's not able to go when the season starts against Texas A&M or whatever, like, let's do this scale of 1 to 10. Your confidence in the guys behind him, Angeli, Minchie, that they can go out there and navigate a season and get the job done.
I don't think Texas A&M is like this world beater team. Now, I think they've got a very.
Well, and I'm not just talking about A&M. I'm talking about the entirety of the season.
The entirety of the season.
Yeah, like if
this
does turn into something, worst case. Like I said, this is worst case.
Yeah, right. So let's say that Riley Leonard he's not going to play a single game, and so now you've got to worry. You've one of the three guys is now going to be your starter in some form or fashion. I think this is still a 10-win football team. I do. I think this is a 10-win football team.
Bryce thinks it's a 19-win football team.
That would be tough.
No, I'm kidding. He corrected it and said 10.
I agree with Bryce. I think no matter which of the three guys you put out there, and obviously it would look different depending on which of the three, but I think they're a 10-win football team with anybody besides Riley Leonard with the schedule.
I would agree with that. I had to think about that for a second. But yeah, I mean, I would agree. Like, and your two potential losses are what? A&M and Florida State, or Florida State, Louisville? Like, what are the two that concern you the most?
I think Louisville's up there, just because, and I'm thinking like of the coaches, because obviously I haven't dove into, personnel and whatnot, but I think, Florida State, Texas A&M, Louisville, I think between those three, I think you can come out of there with 2 losses. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, if you're 10-2, you got an outside chance of making it into the playoff, an outside chance. And if you do, you're going to be facing a 5 or a 6 or, something like that. So that's going to, at their place, and that would be pretty tough.
Right. And I mean, I agree with what you're saying in terms of who Texas A&M is, built up quite a bit on Mike Elko, obviously. I
Right.
think everyone's sort of estimation of that game when the road environment, that would be the biggest thing to me.
Yes.
If Steve Angeli had to go into Texas A&M, outside of the bowl game where it was at best a neutral type environment where you're going into a really hostile environment, regardless of how good the team is, it's going to be, it's a pretty intimidating environment down there.
No doubt.
In College Station. And that would be the big, especially considering how Notre Dame played on the road last year, because that's one of the biggest questions they have to address this year is, are they going to be a better road team than they were last year?
Well, here's what I would say. I would say, Notre Dame played pretty darn well at Ohio State in Marcus Freeman's first game ever as the head coach. I mean, if you don't count the bowl game, you can, whatever. Your first true road game as the head coach in a more hostile environment than I think A&M would be, with a quarterback who is a first-time starter, basically, in Tyler Buchner, and they played pretty well. You know what I mean? Like, they should have won that game, in my opinion. And so I think you could, and I think their defense will be better this season as opposed to 2 seasons ago. And so I think that's part of it as well. You could structure a game plan where you're going to score enough points with your defense to win that game on the road.
Because DJ says not buying only 10 wins. The defense is elite. Skill players on offense are an upgrade. I mean, it's a really good point, kind of piggybacking off what you were just saying. The program as a whole is in a lot better place than it was 2 years ago. And whoever, whether it's Angeli or if it is Riley, like the skill talent, the offensive line, the defense, how it all complements each other. Right. Whoever the quarterback is going to be in a much better situation than Tyler Buchner opening up that season 2 years ago. And then even Drew Pine going through the season, because of just the whole operation.
Absolutely. And I agree with what DJ is saying. I think they could potentially be an 11-win team with a quarterback not named Riley Leonard. Is that possible? Sure it is. But you're also going to have an inexperienced quarterback. And if he's playing catch with the other team, it doesn't matter how many skill guys you have around you. You know what I mean? Like, in other words, if you're throwing interceptions, that could be bad. You know what I mean? And so, again, it just really all depends what the situation is, who's healthy around him, how does the offensive line look? Football's a team game for a reason, right? So could they get to 11 wins? Sure. I still don't think they're a championship level team with one of those 3 guys in 2024.
Right. I think they can get to the playoff, and depending on, again, like if they're a 2-loss team, they're going to have a chance to get into the playoff, but they're not going to be the number 5 seed. And we've talked about, 5 seed would likely play a group of 5 team in that first round game. But if you lose a couple games and you manage to be ranked in the top 4, I guess it's still the top 12, and you get into the playoff, you're going to be seated lower. So and you might not even be hosting. You're probably not going to be hosting that first round game. So, if it is the group of 5 team, then I'd, still give Angeli, a perfectly good shot of being able to lead them to a win in that game. But as the level of competition goes up with each round, right, I think that he can potentially get them to the playoff, but actually winning a championship, I think that's a different story.
Agreed. Absolutely agree with that. And I know there's a couple more starred questions. I don't know if you want to get to those now or you want to save them.
Go ahead.
But
which ones?
The most recent one from ND Sailor.
Yeah. Said Angeli will have more time to prepare for Texas A&M than he did for the Sun Bowl.
And guess what? Devil's advocate, you've got film on Angeli now too.
And
you're
with every game, opponents are going to have more film on him.
And you're going to have Mike Elko, one of the best defensive minds in the country, game planning against Steve Angeli too. So yes, he's got more time, but so does the opposition. So I think those offset each other, if not kind of a check in the Mike Elko department, to be honest with you. I don't think it's that hard to game plan against Steve Angeli.
Yeah, I mean, it's talked about it before, and I'm not saying he's the exact same quarterback as Ian Book, but from the one question that's going to have to be addressed with Steve Angeli is can he push the ball downfield? You know, like we've seen him,
right?
Like with some of the dink and duck type stuff. Can he get the ball downfield? I think that'll be the biggest question for him. But I mean, he's going to have a good run game and everything else to kind of lean on.
Sure,
that'll all be there. But you know, again, especially as you go against the elite teams,
right?
That's going to be a big question. Yep. Can he get the ball downfield? And you know, what will be his willingness, you know, to go through his progressions as a young quarterback and all that kind of, and not just, you know, check down, that kind of thing.
100%. Yeah, 100%. So look, it's March. There's plenty of time between now and then, and we're gonna see. The pushing down the field thing is going to be key, I think, in the spring. I want to see. I need to see Steve Angeli do that in an 11-on-11 situation. The only 11-on-11 situation that I have seen so far in the spring, that was absolutely not the case. But all the other three quarterbacks did.
Exactly.
I mean, it was like one here, three over here. You know, these guys were doing it. Yeah. This guy wasn't. You know, so it's not like that was what the session was doing. Like that wasn't like the focus, because these guys were doing it and he wasn't. So I need to see more of that. And then that would give me more faith that he could get it done.
All right, you want to switch gears and talk a little hoops?
Absolutely. That was a heck of a game. I was a little nervous. I'm not going to lie.
When
I don't know how you want to tackle this.
When were you at your most nervous, I guess?
When they walked out for the tip.
And you saw the size of Ole Miss?
They have serious size and serious length. Yes. You know what I mean? And they dwarfed Notre Dame.
Right.
They absolutely did. And I was like, I leaned over to my father-in-law who I was sitting with. And I was like, this team is long, you know? And if you think about where Notre Dame could potentially get hurt, it would be down low in the paint. It would be with, you know, long athletic defenders, you know, the whole thing. And I was looking at their schedule, and it's like some of the losses that they had were a couple possessions. You know, there were some close losses in there.
They had, and I said this to a couple different people, they had 8 losses coming in to that game. And of those 8 losses, only one came to a team that didn't make the NCAA tournament, and that was their biggest rival, Mississippi State.
Okay.
And they split their 2 games with Mississippi State. Mississippi State won 21 games and didn't make the tournament. You know, they had 2 losses to LSU. They had a loss to South Carolina. They had a loss to Louisville. They had a loss to Texas A&M. All those teams made the NCAA tournament. I was shocked that they were even a number 7 seed just based on looking at that. But I think if they had managed to pull out 1 or 2 of those wins, they probably would have been like a 4 or 5 seed potentially. But they were a 7 because they lost all those games, you know. But you're absolutely right. And just watching them against Marquette the other day, that was a real, you know, grinding kind of game. And, you know, the worry was with the numbers that they have and the length that they have, that they would find a way to sort of make Notre Dame play ugly this afternoon. But
yeah, absolutely.
That never happened.
And that's the thing. Like my fears were squashed pretty quickly because Notre Dame came out of the gate absolutely on fire, and Ole Miss couldn't hit a shot to save their life. So now a lot of that had to do with Notre Dame playing really good defense and not allowing Ole Miss to get into the paint, which I thought was a very sound way to go about defending Ole Miss, right? But they couldn't hit their jumpers, man. They could not hit their jumpers.
But that was part of the game plan. Because Notre Dame stayed in that zone all game, and they kept them from being able to use their athleticism and drive to the basket. And they basically made Ole Miss settle on those jump shots.
Yes.
They only attempted 5 3-pointers Saturday against Marquette. And they're not a 3-point shooting team. They didn't even, as a team, they didn't even have 100 3-pointers made coming into today's
Okay,
game.
well, there you
So
go.
like that, and I think they ended up 3 of 12 on 3-pointers.
And
today.
they were very clearly almost inviting them to shoot threes. Like they were not really extending that zone out beyond the 3-point line. You know what I mean? And South Carolina. Ole Miss wasn't even looking to shoot those threes. I mean, they would get the ball open beyond the arc, and they were looking to pass. I mean, they weren't even looking to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And Notre Dame had them rattled too. I mean, I'm surprised. You know the names better than I do, but number 24, she should have gotten teed up a couple different times.
Right.
Notre Dame had them rattled, which was fantastic. And part of that, I will partially take credit for because it was the fans, doing their thing. But because that was a great environment for that game, and Notre Dame came out with a great game plan and they executed it. They were on fire offensively. I think they were shooting 60% in the first half, whereas Ole Miss was shooting like 38 or 37%.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was a great game by Notre Dame. And then they kind of put it in cruise control and kept it at about 20 the rest of the way. But it was a great game.
Well, in 24, Madison Scott, she's one of two. Her and number 2 for you, since you didn't. And again, Davis, they were both first team All SEC players.
Okay,
and they obviously 2 of their top scorers. Davis ended up with 6 points today. Scott had 15. One of a couple players who ended up in double figures, but like a lot of that actually came late, I think, for Scott as well. And I was just really impressed with how Notre Dame was just able to stick with that zone defense, and they kept it active. And what impresses me is like, not just impresses me, I guess, but like Hannah Hidalgo is just so active at the top of that zone. Like that's how you can get away. Her ability to close out up there, at the top of that, like that's how you can stay in zone. So if the other team is not hitting threes, but having such a great defensive player like that who can close out the way she's capable of is just huge, I think.
Well, and you know what? I really was impressed with the way Anna DeWolf played, not on both sides of the floor, because she played some good defense in that zone as well, and did a good job of not fouling when Ole Miss was trying to drive the lane, and she would get in the way and a hand straight up in the air, and she also offensively was driving to the basket a little bit more than she normally does, which I thought kind of caught Ole Miss a little off guard at times.
Because I thought that in general, like Citron would she would kind of spot him out. I think it was like she realized who was defending her a couple of different times, and and she got to the basket or got to the hole.
Yeah,
and I thought that was part of the game plan. Just doing that. By the way, Citron after the game, she played all 40 minutes Saturday against Kent State. She didn't come out today until there was 16.7 seconds left in the game. She hit a couple of free throws to end her day with 17 points. Double-double, by the way, 17 and 10. Her 9th career double-double, first this season. And she came over and did the post-game interview. And I kind of gave her a hard time. I was like, I don't know, Sony. You're kind of slacking a little bit. And she looked at me like, you think I was slacking? And I was like, you came out with 16.7 seconds left. You played all weekend. Like you're slacking off. You're coming out in the last 16 seconds. It just amazing what she was able to give them, because of course she tied her career high with 29 points on Saturday, and then goes double-double today. And she was basically the only player who never left the floor until the game was obviously, well out of reach there in the last 16 seconds.
She was a monster on the boards. Like I always expect her to score and find ways to score and, doing all that kind of stuff. But she was a monster on the boards. And it wasn't just getting those long rebounds, from distant shots and things like that. She was mixing it up in the trees down there underneath the basket and coming out with some of those boards. And that was not an easy task because, like I said, Ole Miss out-rebounded Notre Dame overall for the game. But she was battling some trees down there from Ole Miss. Like, they are so long.
Well, and like I said, they're playing zone. And usually because you're playing zone, the spacing, you're not rebounding that well. But here she is, a guard, leading everybody with 10 rebounds today.
Yeah, right. I mean, it was an impressive showing all around. They had some fire to them today, and I don't know if part of it was, if you win, you're going to the Sweet 16. I'm sure that had something to do with it. I think some of it had to do with the fact that they know this is their last game at Notre Dame, on the floor for this season, and all of those different things. But they came out with something to prove in the first half, especially. I mean, on both sides of the floor. They were moving the basketball and doing some great things. And I'll tell you what, Maddie Westbell, we haven't talked about her yet. She was unconscious there for a little while, but there was a couple shots that she took. And I leaned over to Chuck. I was like, that's a risky shot. And it was like nothing but the bottom of the net. You know what I mean? Like, she was feeling it. There's no doubt.
Well, and that's when she's rolling like that. She ended up with 20 points. She was 8 of 13. She had a slow start Saturday. She missed her 5 shots, and then I think she was like 4 of 8 after that. Kind of got going a little. Apparently, she had a little bit of a tight back. But, I mean, basically, when Maddie Westbeld is on like that, that is just a good sign for Notre Dame across the board when she's going like that.
Oh, man.
Like she was today.
She was mid-range, underneath, from distance. I mean, she was on fire offensively. There's no doubt about that.
Guys, Olivia Miles is not playing this year. I appreciate the fact that you want her to play, and many people think that she needs to play. She's not playing this year. You can lay out all this stuff about she's going pro. It's not just about preserving the year of eligibility. It's about preserving her health and coming back at 100%. Like we just got done talking about Riley Leonard, and did Riley Leonard maybe push it a little bit too hard after his January surgery? And look where it is. Olivia Miles is not coming back this year. Okay. So it's just, that's what it is. Like in the injury stuff, you could petition for it. Petitions don't always go your way. They petitioned a couple of years ago for Maya Dotson, who transferred in from Stanford and, had a medical reason when she was at Stanford. The NCAA didn't grant it. It is not necessarily about Olivia protecting the year of eligibility as much as it is about just being 100% healthy. And she is practicing with the team right now. It's like, she's been practicing for a while, and she's helping the team in that practice capacity.
And they decided that she's not ready to play, period. Right. It has nothing to do with any of that other stuff. Like that, she's not ready to play.
Right.
And
Jimmy, you're saying if she's healthy, you don't know if she's 100% healthy.
Right.
Like that's
the thing.
That's the thing. And it's her decision. Like she has decided that she's not coming back this year. She announced that in January. And just because the team is where they are right now, she's not coming back this year. So move past that and look at what they've got on the floor. Because that's what they're going to play with.
Be excited about the 7 players that played today. You know what I mean? Be excited about that and what they're able to do, and going to the Sweet 16 for, the third time in 3 years and all that fun stuff. So it's okay. It's okay to be happy.
Salty, I don't know if you're calling me out or if you're like crediting me, but he said, anyone noticed that Notre Dame season went into super drive after my bullshit rant?
I mean
that this came up at the pre-tournament press conference the other day. Sonia Citron talked a little bit about the players only meeting that they had that we talked about like last week. I think like after the ACC tournament, the meeting that Maddie Westbeld called for after that loss to NC State, which was when I, went off on this show a little bit about some of the stuff that we were getting. Sorry, Father David. I was just quoting, what was
in front of a priest too.
What was on there?
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, I mean, 10 wins in a row now. 10 wins in a row since Maddie Westbeld called the players only meeting.
Just saying.
ACC championship, and now they're in the Sweet 16.
Right. Yep.
What did you think about the offense, though? Like overall, what we saw in the offense today?
Number one, offense always looks better when you're hitting your shots, and they were shooting like 60%, which, that's a pretty impressive offensive day. But there were certain things that they were doing, like they almost ran a version of the picket fence at one time for Sonia, And she was wide open. She just went through a bunch of screens and then, came out underneath. And just wide open for a layup. I was like, I think that was the picket fence. But
Don't get caught watching the paint dry.
That's right. That was great. But no, I thought that the Nat Marshall also, or I'm sorry, Cass Prosper, 15. I'm an idiot.
You had it right the first time.
Thank you.
Prosper's injured. Nat Marshall.
Nat Marshall. I thought her offensive game was way better than the last time I saw her play. Now, getting an opportunity to play more obviously will help that. But I thought she had a really good game, and she was facilitating some other people that fast break that they had, and the people around me. When she gave up,
I was going to bring that up
to get it over to Anna over in the corner.
Fast break, Hidalgo to Nat Marshall in the paint. She catches it with the left. It really wasn't even a complete catch, like a little touch pass spin to DeWolf down in the right corner, and DeWolf nails the 3-pointer. Like you could not have drawn it up any better. That was just perfection. Marshall had 5 assists in this game.
Yeah. And she had some nice moves on the post too. She had this one up and under kind of a deal that she was doing. And look, she's kind of coming into her own a little bit. I know it's maybe not as fast as some people may have wanted, but hey, it's tournament time and this is the time to do it. I thought she had a really nice game, and they showed on the big screen after that DeWolf 3 and the assist by her. Anna was like up in her face. She's like, that's what I'm talking about. They'd obviously talked about, getting the ball and moving the ball and all that other stuff. And, she came through, and that was huge. People around me were like, no, don't pass it away. I'm like, this could be good. I said that out loud, like, this could be good. And then she nails it from the corner, and it was awesome.
Yeah, Decaf is asking if Marshall was highly recruited. I want to say she was a 5-star coming out of school. She came into school with an injury. She came into college with a little bit of an injury. I think it was more than a little bit of an injury. It's been 4 years ago, so I can't remember all the details, and that was my first season as well. But yeah, she's, she's shown some flash, and she's had, she's picked up 4 fouls in each of these 2 games.
They're gonna have to be careful with that because Maddie had 4 fouls today too,
and that's both games now. They've each had 4, and they were fortunate that they were able to have the lead, in both games, and it didn't really come into play. But that's like, if you're gonna, like, the one critique, that's something. I still like watching both of these games, though. It's like some of these fouls that are called. It's like a little bit ticky tack when you're talking about NCAA tournament games. And on both sides. I'm not just talking about it.
No. But I did feel like, there was a couple that they called on Ole Miss at the top, on Hannah Hidalgo, that didn't seem like much of a foul. Like there was some kind of touch fouls up there. And then, in the second half, I felt like the refs kind of facilitated a little bit the little run that Ole Miss made there. I think they got it down to maybe 12 or 13. But I felt like the assist went to the refs on that a little bit.
Yeah, and that was kind of the pivotal moment when I think it was about the time that Marshall picked up her 4th foul, and then they did cut it to like a 13 or a 14-point game. It's like, okay, because there was still like a little under 8 minutes left. You're barely starting the 4th quarter. It's like, what's going to happen here? But again, they responded.
Yes. 100% they responded. And they never get it. They obviously never let it get any lower than 12 or 13 or whatever it ended up being. But, and they kind of, dropped the hammer there towards the end. But, look, it always feels like Notre Dame has kind of an off quarter, sometimes maybe even off half.
Yeah.
And that was not the case today at all. That was not the case as far as putting points on the board. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about?
Like the 4th quarter, I think they scored 10 points. 10 points in the 4th quarter. I think they were like 2 of 17 or something like that. But at the same time, it's like
they also took the foot off the gas.
Like they were taking the air out of the ball, which we were talking about that in the post game a little bit. It can go both ways. Like, do you keep attacking, or do you just use some clock and there were once or twice where shot selection probably wasn't the absolute best, like a little too early in the shot clock, or maybe you settle for a jumper or that kind of thing. But I felt like, and this is, this is a great point by Keith as well, because he said Neil has always been good with her timeouts, and they called another timeout, at that point where
Yeah, they're
Ole
making
Miss
that
was
run.
starting to creep back in it, and they made some adjustments. They came back out. The game stabilized, and like during this 10-game win, and even before that, but during this 10-game win streak, we've seen a lot of those strategic timeouts by Niele Ivey, where they, kind of come over, let's regroup, let's make these minor adjustments, and then things have ended up working out after that. Stem the tide and keep on rolling.
Yep. She didn't need to call a bunch of timeouts because her team was in complete control of that game. And then when it felt like, I don't want to say slipping away, because that's not it wasn't slipping away. It's just some momentum had changed sides a little bit. You know what I mean? And so it was a really good timeout by Niele. There's no doubt about that.
Right. So Jimmy put in a super chat, and he wants to keep talking about Olivia Miles.
She's not 100%.
He says, if she's 100%, why wouldn't you play her? One, you don't know if she's 100%, and I don't think she is 100%. And two, it's not just the coach's decision. This is a player coming back from a major injury, and it is not just this season that is at stake. It is her future health. It is her decision, and her decision is she's not going to play the rest of this season. I don't know how to make it any more clear than that. Like I said the last time when we were talking about this 5 minutes ago, you can want her to play as much as possible, but she's not going to play this season, because it's not just a year of eligibility and a run in the NCAA tournament that's at stake for her. For her, it is also her health and making sure that she's not just going to be able to come back for a couple games and maybe not help the team this year. It's also about her future, both at Notre Dame and beyond. There's just a lot at risk because she's coming back from a major knee injury.
Correct.
I don't know what else you can say. Any more clear than that?
Yeah, I don't know what else you can say.
Right, and there's all this, talk about, well, if she plays, their 4-game limit and all this stuff. The NCAA's rules are, so stupid to begin with, because the games, that you like, they have to be at the front of the season for some reason, So again, like if she came back, like even though she would only play potentially, like say they go to the national championship game and she does only play in 4 games, because they're at the end of the season, you would still have to petition for the year of eligibility, and you don't know how the NCAA is going to rule in that case.
Sure. And why would you take that chance?
Right.
There's no point.
Right.
There's no point.
DK was saying this earlier. I'm not sure what we were talking about. He said, post a pick, I'm local. I think it was at the start of the show. I'm not exactly sure what we were talking about. But
I mean, Sean will post you whatever picks you want.
Yeah, within reason. DJ said he didn't watch the game, listen to Karen and I the whole game. Thank you, sir. I do appreciate it. Hopefully we did it justice. It was a pretty fun game to call, though.
I bet. I mean, like I said, a lot of firepower early, so get your wheels all greased up, ready to roll.
Well, and this is, Keith brings up another good point on the Miles. Like at this point, even though she has been practicing, with the team, it's still a matter of, you are, what is it, like 34, 35 games into the season, and now you're just gonna, it's not as easy as just slipping another player into the rotation at this point, even if she was 100%.
Right, exactly.
All right, couple other questions here at the end. Andre said, Big Three does it again, and of course the Big Three is referring to Hidalgo, Westbeld, and Citron. KK is becoming Jackie Young. I believe she has the skill to become that 4th scoring option. I think she can. It's just like with her, because she's not a 3-point shooter, so it's like she's mid-range and get to the basket, and like you'll see her post up every now and then. It's like she's still kind of, I think that's probably her off-season mission is to continue to sort of refine that shot and find her shot a little bit more. But I think you're right. I think she can be, for sure. And then we're talking about next year. You throw Miles into the mix, and I think it's just
Well,
going to look a lot different anyway.
And then there's the other gal who came in with Hidalgo. She's a 3-point, shooting ace, and they're going to have Neil's going to have a good problem on her hands. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
A lot of talent.
Yeah, USMA 87 said the ESPN announcers were not good Saturday. The coach, former player, had loose dentures or something impossible. I think it was the same crew that was there today.
I'm sure.
As well. Yeah. Fortunately, I was not listening, so I can't.
No. You're sitting right next to him, but yeah, you can't hear anything.
Can't hear. Decaf says 10 Our Fathers, 10 Hail Marys after the show. All right.
Hey, you were just reading what the guy said. Like that was
right.
Your words. You were quoting.
I guess I could have said BS and conveyed the same message.
It is what it is,
Did you see Andrew? Did you see the cheap shot on Caitlin Clark? Total Bush League. She should get used to that when she goes to the. Did you see that over the weekend?
Yeah, a little forearm
social media. Yeah, and Andrew Perloff, McLovin, formerly of the Dan Patrick Show. Did you see his tweet where he was defending the other player saying it wasn't intentional? I thought.
I did see that.
I don't know how anyone could watch that. I mean, she swung an elbow up at Clark's face.
Yeah, no, it was 100% intentional. And I mean, yeah, my favorite situation involving Caitlin Clark was when her dad told her to shut up.
That was hilarious.
That was my favorite part. It's like, stop complaining and play the game. Up. Like, that was fantastic. That was awesome.
And apparently, like reading that Wright Thompson article we were talking about last week, that's kind of one of the things that maybe turned some coaches off and maybe, turned Gino off. I don't know. It was like
rashness, basically.
Some of that. Like, let's be honest. If it was Wojo or, JJ Redick or, Grayson Allen, that's, like if Caitlin Clark was a dude and played for Duke, basically, that's, like those kind of guys, everyone would hate Caitlin Clark, basically.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Because of that kind of stuff. But
you're not wrong.
Yeah. And that's, some of the stuff last year from the national championship game. Angel Reese kind of got all the flack at the end, like showing the ring and all that, talking. But like, if you watch Caitlin Clark very much, that she's a talker. Mm-hmm. So she's doing that kind of stuff as well. So it's not like, it's not like she's an angel. She's a great player, but it's not like she's an angel.
Still enjoy Dad, because Dad is always Dad.
That's right. Father David says she's Christian Leitner, basically. I mean, that's a good one as well. But Father David, I also do appreciate the fact that you already cleared me. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
He's got that kind of power, man.
I can sleep easier tonight.
Yeah,
that's right.
Seriously.
Andrew, do you guys believe Ohtani when he says he never bet on sports? He had his presser today, pinned it all on his assistant.
Do I believe that he never bet on sports? Not especially. Do I believe he had a betting problem? No. I think the assistant had a betting problem. Did he throw a couple bets here and there? Probably. But I don't think this is a big time issue.
I find it hard to believe. Well, let me put it this way. I do believe Ohtani when he says that he didn't, but the fact that the interpreter / assistant, whatever, like he was basically doing the legwork, like I think that Ohtani might not have been putting down the wagers himself, which is smart, but I think that the connection to this guy, they were connected at the hip.
I think that's fair. I do. I think that's. I don't
think he was smart enough not to do it himself.
Right. I don't think the assistant was just the leg man though. Like I don't.
Well, yeah, and that's right.
Whatever,
however you want to term it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think the assistant had some issues with gambling. I mean, $4.5 million debt. That's pretty. It's a pretty major. That's a pretty substantial number. I don't think that was Shohei particularly. But are you telling me he never placed one bet? I got a little harder problem with that.
Right.
I'll just say that.
Right. Well, so the Notre Dame women are off to the Sweet 16. It's the 20th overall
Yeah.
for them, third straight Sweet 16. They'll play third seed Oregon State. This weekend, they'll play Friday in Albany, New York, in the Albany 1 region. And then South Carolina is going to play either Oklahoma or Indiana. They are playing
Right
today.
now.
I think
They're playing right now.
I think they just started maybe 30 minutes ago. And Oklahoma has an early lead in the first half, 26-22.
Okay.
So
All
they
right.
would play. They'll place the winner of that is going to play South Carolina in the Sweet 16.
Go whoever the other team is playing South Carolina.
Yes. Decaf, I will be leaving Wednesday, so I'll be here tomorrow. Are you and Jesse here on Wednesday?
I think so. I would have to double check the old schedule, but I believe he and I are a go for Wednesday.
Okay.
I believe.
And then I will be back on Thursday. I'll have a show. I'll up in the hotel room in Albany. So I'll be here Thursday. And don't know what time the game is going to be yet. So if we have another early game and there's an opportunity, we might do something like this where, slide in and kind of
we'll see.
Post it up afterwards.
Yeah,
You're not going to be here Friday though, right?
I am going to be in Eastern Michigan with my son.
That's what I thought. So if there's a show Friday, it's going to be Jesse and I. So it'll depend on when the game is.
Right. Friday. I honestly don't even remember what time we're going to be up there. I mean, there's a chance we could be back. We will have to see how it goes.
That's right. Scott, great win, great season. No matter what happens, I'll be in Albany. Sean will maybe get a chance to say hi to my family. All right. Look me up.
Nice.
Looking forward to it.
Oh, Decaf saw 2:30 for the game.
What?
I don't see how they would have had that figured out already, but you never know.
They've already announced a game time?
Well,
is that what someone is saying?
Yeah, he's saying he saw 2:30.
My man, Brandon Valoria, who lives in Albany, he was a pitcher on Notre Dame's 2002 College World Series team. I've seen him and his family up in Syracuse when we've been up there with women's basketball the last 2 years. He just sent me a message that they will be there
on
Friday. So looking forward to seeing one of the old College World Series guys rolling in on Friday. It's going to be a lot of. Never been to Albany before. I have no idea what to expect. Have you been to Albany before?
I have never been to New York State.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
I want to look and see. Tamika Catchings. That's who was doing the game. Okay, Tamika Catchings. I didn't recognize her. That's like a name from the past. One of the Tennessee players.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
So that was Tamika Catchings doing the game. So if you have flack, you have flack with Tamika, I guess. I don't know. So I can't say one way or the other.
That's great.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. We're going to wrap it up with that. We started with a little football, ended with a little basketball. We will be back tomorrow. We will have a full rapid fire slate. So we'll be back in with some rapid fire tomorrow. Vince, enjoyed it as always.
Yes, sir.
Little women's basketball post game.
Got to go shag some balls now out at the field. So, the work is never done, Sean Stiers.
I'm going to wrap it up with this. One request from you. Like you've probably seen Brian's, if you're a subscriber to the Champions Lounge, you've probably seen Brian's post about there's some different things going on with, the way Apple counts its podcast downloads. And I've done a little research. Hang tight if you would real quick. Just pay attention because people have asked how can I help out IB? Because things are, there's some stuff going on with the website and the SI stuff. There's stuff going on with the podcasts as well. Here's what I would say. Even if you watch because of the way Apple is counting its downloads right now, does it make sense to go into complete detail about the way they're doing it? It's a little complicated.
Yeah, you can gloss
basically, from what I understand, even if you subscribe to Apple to a podcast on Apple, like if you subscribe to it the way it used to do it, they would automatically download. But now what's happening is if you subscribe to a podcast, but you're not actively listening to it over like a couple week period or something like that,
They'll stop downloading.
they stop downloading automatically. And this is a new development. So if you want to help out IB, there's an easy solution. And I've started doing this in the morning. Just get up in the morning, subscribe to Irish Breakdown, get up in the morning, just push play. And even if like you're jumping in the shower or doing something else, just let it, play for a few minutes. And that keeps the downloads downloading, and it helps us out greatly.
Yep.
I mean, greatly, just by doing something simple like that. Or even if, like if you watch on the YouTube at night, again, just get up the next morning, hit play on a podcast on Irish Breakdown, and that helps us out quite a bit. I think it will help us, through this new way that Apple is, counting their downloads, because it is affecting our bottom line right now because they have switched things up. That's all I would say. But we appreciate all of our IB listeners and viewers and everybody else. But that's a simple little fix that would help us out quite a bit. Just hit play. That's all you got to do.
That's it. Easy peasy.
And with that, Spotify has not switched their thing up, David. But if you're not, Father David, but I mean, the more you hit play, regardless of what platform, that just helps us out. Let's put it that way. So like, even if if you're typically, like you've got Spotify, whatever, like it's going to help us no matter what platform you hit play on. On YouTube, no changes, Brando, but the audio platform affects our bottom line.
Right.
A lot.
So on YouTube, like it, subscribe, notification bell, that kind of stuff.
Right.
That's what helps us on YouTube.
Right.
Yep. So thanks for bearing with us on that.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys.
I hope that made sense. But appreciate you no matter what. We appreciate all of our, because we're just in that, we're in the time of year where some people kind of hibernate a little bit. They're not active until the actual season starts.
Hey, I get it.
We appreciate everybody that's here throughout the year, no matter what.
Yeah, we do.
So we will talk to you tomorrow. Hit that like button before you leave, and you know what to do otherwise. And we'll talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.